That was good. I'd like to call the March, I was going to say financial rules, but I guess it was the full Board of Legislature meeting to order. And if you would stand for the pledge and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Roll call of members.
Legislator Reed. Here. McBride. Here. Johnson. Here. Peck. Here. Drake. Here. Nebewanek. Here. Fitzpatrick. Here. Maxson. Here. Cantwell. Here. Doldo. Here. Gray.
Here. Mr. Jarrow is on his way, running late. Privilege of the floor. Would anybody like to address this? Ken? Okay. Reading minutes of the last session. Does anybody desire to have those read? Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? None? Then they'll stand as presented. Presentations of petitions, notices, and communications.
We do have a few this evening. First, we have on file 2018 annual reports for the county auditor, the county planning department, and the county clerk. We also now have on file the 2019 NISAC legislative resolutions for anybody that wishes to review. That is all.
Reports of standing committees.
We have a report of Finance and Rules Committee reporting favorably on resolutions number 38, 39, 41, 42, and 43.
Reports of county officers and others.
Report of the county treasurer on investments in cash on hand for the prior month, and also we have a report from the county administrator on budget transfers.
Okay. We'll begin with local laws, resolutions, and motions. Resolution number 47.
Amending the 2019 county budget in relation to Samaritan Senior Village Incorporated.
Discussion. None? Roll call.
Legislator Johnson?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Maxson?
Yes.
Drake? Yes. McBride? Yes. Doldo?
Yes.
Nebewanek?
Yes.
Cantwell?
Yes.
Fitzpatrick? Peck?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries.
48.
Authorizing a joint services agreement with the town of Familia for optional county assessment services for the town pursuant to real property tax law 1537.
Discussion. Mr. Maxson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we know, I thought I saw Mrs. Burns, how many parcels are there that we're going to be, is it a full town-wide reval?
The answer will be yes, over a period of time. Okay. How many, I'm not sure.
Yeah, come on. Yep. This is not just a reval.
Okay, that's so what.
So what this resolution actually is, this is a first for Jefferson County. It's been something that's sort of a trend across the state where municipalities are contracting with the county for either part or all of the assessment services because it's getting difficult to find assessors. They're a group of people that are heading towards retirement. So as the county administrator just said, townwide reassessment, yes. But the condition of the town is such that we could not go in there and do that. We would need at least 2 years to do a data collection and to get the town in order. But then what the board wants, ultimately, the town board, is a townwide revaluation. The town of Familia has the lowest equalization rate in the county right now, 57%. So, and it's been over 20, 25 years since they've done a revaluation, so I think they're due. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Go ahead, Ms. Smith.
Thank you. And do you know offhand how many parcels they have?
1,940.
Just offhand?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good. And so we're charging 1940 per parcel, or?
Correct.
Okay.
And We arrived at that number covering all of our costs, meaning, the salary for our staff person, FICA, health insurance, mailings, all that sort of thing. That's how we arrived at that.
Will this require us to hire a new position in the office?
No. And if I may, Chairman, I would, thank you. I would like to introduce Alex Marchinkoff. Come on up, Alex. He is my real property appraisal technician in the revaluation department. He's a very busy man, but he's willing to take on this additional task, and I believe he's up to it, and so we will not be hiring someone additional at this time. Now, I'm not going to say that down the road I wouldn't ask for that, because this is new to all of us. It's going to be a learning experience, but at this point, it's so important that this is done for the residents of the town of Pamelia, that we're going to make this happen no matter what it takes. And like I said, Alex, if you want to just give them a brief description of what your background is that gives you the background and puts you in a position to take this job on, in addition to what you already do?
Real quick, it's 1,724 parcels for Pamelia for the 2018 roll. That's the number that we used when we worked up those numbers. And then the 1944 parcel based on costs that we expect from it. And that's over the course of at least the 3 years to get them to do a revaluation. I've been working in the county's revaluation department since 2012. So I've worked in towns across the county, helping out their assessors, basically doing anything that assessors do. They need a lot of help. So I have a associate's degree from JCC, a bachelor's degree, and an MBA. Those are from the Columbia College of Missouri, which used to be an all-women's college. So some people would say I was lucky for joining them, but really their focus nowadays is to reach out to areas like ours where you may not be able to get a bachelor's degree or master's degree, or now more than ever you can get higher degrees here. But it's a really great college that hires some very interesting professors from other Ivy League schools, and all right, you're welcome.
Thank you, Alex. And yes, the 1940, I will admit, is a projection that year 3. Thank you, Alex. So again, I just wanted everyone to put a face with the name, because he will be considered the town of Pamelia assessor, as well as still a county employee.
Hey, yeah, go ahead, Mr. Maddox.
This is, you're speaking my language, which I like. Now, maybe this is a better question for Dave. How does the SCAR process, or the Board of Assessment Review, work if we're the assessor?
Alex would be in the stead of the assessor, signing all the necessary paperwork, but other than that, the town would still be responsible for handling all the tax certification, tax certiorari work. He would be responsible for testifying in court if necessary. The town attorney would continue to be responsible for defending tax certioraries. There would still be the local bar.
Yeah, it'd still be a local Board of Assessment review.
Thank you. Would be hearing the local,
they'd still be hearing the grievances, and it would not affect the SCAR process in any way. And I think perhaps where you might be going with it is the agreement is such that the county will not be responsible for any court cases after SCAR. I know that's where you were going.
That was my next question.
And the agreement is that is the town of Pamelia's responsibility. As Mr. Polson said, Alex, being the town assessor, he probably would be required to give testimony, but it will not be a cost to Jefferson County.
Floor is yours, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you kindly. I don't often get to talk real property.
You can stop in and talk anytime
I know,
you want.
I know, and it's actually one of my favorite departments today. Will the town board pass some sort of corresponding resolution to appoint him as the assessor? Is that how just the mechanism?
Yes. Real property tax, section 1537, calls for it. Obviously, it's a mutual agreement, so the town has to pass a resolution, and the Jefferson County Board of Legislators have to pass a resolution. Several months ago, I provided Mr. Paulson with some sample contracts from other municipalities that have already entered into these agreements, and between him and David Renzi, who is the town of Familia attorney, they've worked out a contract that's mutually acceptable. It mirrors each other, and that's what will actually kick this whole process into gear.
I don't have any other further questions, but I would say that I think it's exciting. And I think that this is a good opportunity for shared services, especially since it's not 1820 anymore, and we don't necessarily need a town government every 6 square miles. I don't know that there's a huge difference in the value of land from Familia to one of the neighboring towns. So I
Careful, the governor says that about counties. So. Lest we not become the same talking points.
Well, I believe that less government is better. So if we are redundant, I think that we should do away with redundant services. I think if we have the expertise in the office, and it seems like we do, if this is a pilot project with Familia that goes well, honestly, I think that it could be a good opportunity for some of the other towns, especially when you look at I love my assessor. I love the assessors I deal with, but they are certainly not spring chickens, and they're not getting any younger. So
this actually came out of the shared services.
This is great.
Initiative that Bob spearheaded. Whenever.
Well, I like it. I like it, and I hope it goes well. So that, yeah, I think this could really help some of the towns. We roll it out optionally. Yeah.
And Ms. Burns has done a great job moving this forward. So, yep. So it is a good initiative.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. And we're pleased that you're happy right off the bat. So
let's hope I stay that way.
We'll keep that rolling. I will work my hardest. Further discussion. Hearing none. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Let's stop right there. We'll move to adjourn. 49, please.
Concurring in settlement of tax certiorari proceedings and authorizing refund of taxes in connection herewith in regards to McDonald's Corporation.
Discussion. None? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Carried. 50.
Urging New York State to fund all costs associated with new state enacted voting reforms implemented at the county level.
Discussion. Mr. Maxson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is another one that I did want to comment on. I think it's important to just remind everyone that it was just last year the governor proposed early voting and included money in his budget to help implement it. And here we are in 2019, and it was included in the legislative packet, but suddenly the funding was gone. And for us to have to provide polling places, early voting, when you go into your voting booth or your polling place and you see one of those wonderful little old ladies with their thick paper books, just imagine 22 towns, a city, and all of the different election districts worth of books piled up on the desk. For us to implement electronic poll books is going to be prohibitively expensive, $200,000. I don't know if anyone else read the resolution and talked to the Board of Elections about it. We don't have that kind of money lying around. For him to propose it last year with money and then to come back this year and say, now do it without money, is just beyond preposterous. So I would like that message. I'm glad it's in our packet tonight, and I would like that message sent to Albany. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maxson. Further discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Does it mean you're happy twice now? Okay. 51.
Opposing the proposed and amended 2020 executive state budget impacting aid and incentives to municipalities and state cost shifts to counties.
Discussion. None? Mr. Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just wanted to say thank you for this resolution coming forward after, I made comments before that my own town supervisor was upset and discouraged with the state's behavior with the AIM funding and then the twisting shenanigans that have come out since then, trying to tie it in with the internet sales tax collections. It's just a very unbalanced way of trying to make us balance the books on the state's behalf. So it was just a very unfair thing, and just very pleased to see this resolution.
The potential beyond this to raid our budgets, raid different revenue streams that pass through the state to us is enormous. So it really is important that we have to stop it right here before it gets here. So further discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Carried. 52.
Reappointing member to the Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency.
Discussion? None? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Carried. I think that's Mr. Giro coming in right now.
Reappointing member to the Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency, resolution number 53.
53. Yeah, he's making a grand entrance.
What's that?
Discussion? None? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Carried. 54.
Reappropriating funds from various unspent grants relative to the Fire and Emergency Management Department and amending the 2019 county budget in relation thereto.
Discussion? None? Roll call.
Legislator Cantwell? Drake? Reed? Yes. Maxson? Yes. Gero?
54. Sure.
Peck? Yes. McBride? Yes. Nebewanik? Yes. Goldo? Yes. Johnson? Yes. Fitzpatrick? Gray?
Yes. 55.
Authorizing grant agreement, State Environmental Quality Review Act determination, and amending the 2019 county budget in relation to the 2018 Community Development Block Grant Award from the New York State Office of Community Renewal.
Discussion? None? Roll call.
Legislator Fitzpatrick? Yes. Gero? Yes. McBride? Yes. Maxson? Yes. Cantwell? Yes. Nebewanik? Yes. Goldo? Yes. Reed? Yes. Johnson? Yes. Peck? Yes. Drake? Yes. Gray?
Yes.
Motion carried.
56.
Amending the 2019 county budget and capital plan to recognize 2019 revenue from Fort Drum Residential Community Initiative.
Discussion? None? Roll call.
Legislator Nebewanik? Yes. Fitzpatrick? Maxson? Yes. Gero? Yes. Reed? Yes. Goldo? Yes. McBride? Yes. Peck? Yes. Drake? Yes. Cantwell? Yes. Johnson? Yes. Gray?
Yes.
Motion carried.
57.
Amending the 2019 county budget to reappropriate Metropolitan Planning Organization funding.
Discussion? None? Roll call.
Legislator Johnson? Yes. Fitzpatrick? Yes. Peck? Yes. Goldo? Yes. Drake? Yes. McBride? Yes. Reed? Yes. Nebewanik? Yes. Maxson? Yes. Gero? Yes. Cantwell? Yes. Gray?
Yes.
Motion carried.
58.
Authorizing agreement with Thompson Reuters for clear services to the probation department.
Discussion? None? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Carried. 59.
Amending the 2019 county budget in relation to law enforcement.
Discussion? Roll call.
Legislator Johnson? Yes. Drake? Yes. McBride? Yes. Nebewanik? Yes. Maxon? Fitzpatrick? Jarrow? Reed? Doldo? Cantwell? Peck? Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries.
60.
Reappropriating funds from various unspent traffic safety committee grants relative to the Sheriff's Department and amending the 2019 county budget in relation thereto.
Discussion? None? Roll call.
Legislator Jarrow?
No.
McBride? Doldo? Johnson? Drake? Cantwell? Fitzpatrick? Nebewanik? Reed? Maxon? Peck? Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries.
61.
Reappropriating funds from various unspent Homeland Security grants relative to the Sheriff's Department and amending the 2019 county budget in relation thereto.
Just a point of order here, just so everybody is aware, this comes out of General Services with a negative recommendation and out of Finance and Rules with a favorable recommendation. Discussion. Mr. Maxon.
Thank you. I wish that this were the one that I was going to go to war over. Right? As I said in the General Services meeting, maybe I didn't say it this time. I've said it in years past. I would urge you to read about some of the abuses of power that have taken place under programs funded by Operation Stone Garden, which is a federal Homeland Security Border Patrol grant given to communities that live along the borders. Our rights are precious, and when we cede our rights to the federal government in the name of safety, those who would trade their rights for, I'm not going to bore you with quotes, but they deserve neither. If they trade liberty for security, you deserve neither. So once again, as is my custom, I will vote against any of our grants receiving money to fund Operation Stone Garden programs, and I'm doing it for your rights.
Thank you, Mr. Maxon. Anybody else? Mr. Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. And to your point, I will say that I have looked up some of those abuses in the past, and the majority of them have been on the southern border, which is already a notorious haven of nefariousness on both sides of the border. But, you know, at this point, I have enough faith and trust within our own local law enforcement that I would make the presumption that if the sheriff felt that there was something out of cause and out of questionable actions, I would believe that she would tell us at this point. And then I would wait until there was actual evidence given to us by our local law enforcement to say that, no, we should no longer take these grants.
Mr. Jarrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I agree with Mr. Peck that we haven't witnessed anything from within our county borders that has been an abuse. And our Sheriff's Department, I think, has done a great job with using these monies. Well, we don't have to look just at the southern border. In St. Lawrence County, there was a severe abuse with these monies, severe. So it's a little closer home than we all think. So I would just like to point that out. If this doesn't happen in Texas.
Mr. Maxon.
Just to specify, I believe my colleague is, in case anyone has forgotten, referring to the American citizen and woman who lived in St. Lawrence County who was tased by our brave men and women who protect the border. So those abuses happen very close to home.
Mr. Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. In response, that was an actual Border Patrol agent, not a local law enforcement. So therefore, they are being funded by the federal government. That is their problem.
Mr. Jarrow.
That was it in an inland situation that was using other agencies as well and using Stone Garden money.
Further discussion? Roll call.
Legislator Fitzpatrick. Jarrow.
No.
Drake. Johnson. McBride. Goldo. Nebewanik. Cantwell. Heck. Reed. Maxim. Gray.
Yes.
Motion carries.
62.
Authorizing fiscal year 2017 Operation Kindergarten Grant Agreement and amending 2019 county budget relations thereto.
Once again, this resolution comes forward with a negative recommendation from General Services Committee and a favorable recommendation from the Finance and Rules Committee. Discussion. None? Roll call.
Legislator Goldo? Nebewanik? Darrow? Craig? Johnson? Fitzpatrick? McBride? Cantwell? Heck? Reed? Maxim? Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries.
63.
Amending the 2019 county budget to reappropriate district funding for the Office of Aging.
Discussion. None? Roll call.
Legislator Drake? Fitzpatrick? Darrow? Cantwell? Heck? Johnson? Reed? Nebewanik? Maxim? Goldo? McBride? Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries.
64.
Amending 2019 county budget to reappropriate funds and accepting additional 2019 funding for Veterans Peer Support Program.
Discussion. None? Roll call.
Legislator McBride? Goldo? Nebewanik? Heck? Darrow? Fitzpatrick? Maxim? Gray? Reed? Cantwell? Johnson? Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries.
65.
Amending the 2019 county budget to reappropriate federal Medicaid administration reimbursement for the Community Services Department.
Discussion. None? Roll call.
Legislator Goldo? Darrow? Cantwell? Heck? Fitzpatrick? McBride? Drake? Reed? Maxim? Johnson? Nebewanik? Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries.
66.
Amending the 2019 county budget to reappropriate district funding for Community Services Department.
Discussion. None? Roll call.
Legislator Goldo? Maxim? Gray? Johnson? Fitzpatrick? Cantwell? Heck? McBride? Reed? Nebewanik? Darrow? Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries.
67.
Authorizing funding in connection with the New York State Department of Health and Local Health Department Performance Incentive Initiative and amending the 2019 county budget relations thereto.
Discussion. None? Roll call.
Legislator Drake? McBride? Cantwell? Goldo? Darrow? Johnson? Heck? Nebewanik? Reed? Maxim? Fitzpatrick? Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries.
68.
Authorizing the commencement of litigation by Jefferson County for the purpose of recovering costs associated with provision of public benefits and services associated with opioid abuse and opioid addiction individuals.
Discussion. Mr. Max.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 5 months ago, this resolution came to the board and failed to receive adequate support to pass. I'm shocked that it's come back up before this board. It seems nearly unprecedented that it would come back in the same term. Last time in October, I shared my philosophy about why I think it's a bad idea. Prima facie, why I think a lawsuit to sue manufacturers for how a bad actor or a person in the community misuses their product is a horrible, horrible precedent. I won't get into that again. Instead, rather than rejecting it on its face, I decided to examine the merits. In the last 5 months, we've received no new information. It was simply an idea that appeared last October. No new information came to the Health and Human Services Committee on which I serve. No new information came to the board as a whole. I've spoken with a number, almost all of my colleagues on the board, and there has been a general feeling that more information is needed. I spoke with many of you about my intention to move to postpone consideration of this until we can investigate some of the questions that remain unanswered. I've heard repeatedly that we need to file a lawsuit quickly and have those questions answered later, which seems to me a very indeliberate way of conducting governance. And as I read this week a quote that I found just absolutely phenomenal: good governing is good politics, not the other way around. And I think that good governing, I mean it.
Please attribute that.
That would be our chairman, Mr. Scott Gray, quoted in the Atlantic. A great piece, if you haven't read it, about how apparently we're nice people. It's not over yet. I think that good governing is deliberative. I think good governing assumes the best about our colleagues on the board, especially when a number of us have concerns that haven't been addressed. I don't know that, trust us, we'll have law firms come in after we pass it. Let's pass it quickly so we don't miss any deadlines. Well, we're not joining a class action lawsuit. There aren't any deadlines. We're making an individual decision to sue someone. It's not named in the resolution, simply to recoup costs, and we'll leave it up to the lawyers. But as I've said in the past, I have grave concerns about the way that many of the lawsuits have metastasized into going after now pharmacies. Here in New York State, they're suing Walmart, Costco, Walgreens, and Rite Aid, naming them as co-defendants. And you find this information right on the law firm's website. They're proud of the fact that they're going after pharmacies for filling out these prescriptions given to them by doctors. I do intend, I don't know how the motion will go, I do intend, after everyone discusses this resolution, I still intend to move that we postpone consideration to allow for that investigation. I think an investigation on some of these questions is needed, and the mechanism that I chose in the resolution that I drafted and forwarded to all of you is a special committee rather than an ad hoc committee. Something that would post public agendas like our Finance and Rules, Health and Human Services, and General Services Committee. Something that the public would be invited to. Something that would take testimony from law firms, from administrators of hospitals or pharmaceutical companies or pharmacies, and to let them lay out the case for and against in a very impartial way so that the members of this board can be more fully appraised of the reasons for and against a lawsuit. Quite frankly, I'm open to the possibility that everyone comes in and says, no, Jeremiah, your tinfoil hat is showing this is a good idea. I'm certainly open to the possibility that a committee would make that recommendation. But to do it in a public way, to allow sunlight to be a good disinfectant, to allow the public to be included and involved, I think is not just good, but I think it's good governing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maxson. Further discussion? Mr. Drake.
I wasn't here in October, but I would have voted for it. If in a lawsuit, if these businesses have not any way broken the law as far as false advertising, not just telling what the addiction is going to be, or offered excessive money to promote their drugs to be prescribed, then they'll have nothing to worry about. But I know I represent my community, and some of these bad actors are good people who died. Some of these bad actors are living on pins and needles because they're trying to overcome this addiction. And I know that my community would want me to vote for it. And I'm voting 100% for it.
Thank you, Mr. Drake. Further discussion? Mr. Peck?
Thank you, Mr. Gray. So, in the interim, it has not particularly been silent. I have tried to communicate. I've always been open. If there's anybody that had questions or concerns, continue the dialogue. But it only failed basically because of a more or less lack of absence. It was not an outright defeat. It was just mainly a lack of majority. So that enables this to come back up again. And I think it is still prudent and very welcoming of the discussion with it. But, a couple of the notes I've jotted down here. As far as nationally, there are 42,000 deaths associated with opioids in 2016. Since 1999, drug overdoses quadrupled since 1999. And the CDC has attributed a life expectancy that has declined since 2016, and they attribute it to opioid use and abuse and the results of the crisis associated with opioids. Not to mention that Purdue Pharma has 3 executives that pled guilty in 2007 and settled with the federal government at that point in time. And so when there's questions raised about why doesn't the federal government get more involved or do something more active, well, they checked out. They've already checked out. So that's where it's become that the locales and states are going forward and suing on their own behalf because we're the ones who fund the local organizations that have to respond to the overdose call. We're the ones that fund the local organizations that have to deal with the people seeking treatment and rehabilitation. We're the ones that are the boots on the ground dealing with this day in and day out. So our taxpayers have bore the burden of the cost that the corporate executives profited from. And I very much believe that it is a deceptive marketing, and I don't think that that anyone should consider that corporations are above moral and ethical behavior, that there isn't a point and root of consideration that they should be held liable and responsible, especially considering that 3 executives of one corporation said, yeah, we caused this. And it has been noted widely in a variety of media outlets, which by and large, if you look at them and compare them one to each other, there's enough fact there to derive the point that, hey, this isn't isolated. This is not an anomaly. There's a lot of truth into this. And that's where it comes back to this, and allowing our attorney the ability to go forward with an attorney, because a lot of the questions that you have as far as what's the actual cost, what's the actual benefit, some of those questions there, these law firms have the rubric in place to be able to examine our cost benefit and to understand what our liabilities are and package that into the suit going forward. They are not going to do that work for free. So that's where the resolution comes into play, that we need to bring them on board so that we can analyze this. And then if you can contrive a majority after the fact, say that, no, this isn't in the benefit enough, it's not enough benefit in your opinion, then let's gather the majority and shoot it down. But you're not going to get to the answers that you're seeking without having the lawyer on board to do that grunt work, which is necessary, which nobody in our staff can particularly do. They're going to be the data collection for them, but they're the one that is going to assemble the case for us. And so beyond that, I did talk with our attorney, and he has put somebody on board on our docket for the Health and Human Services Committee later this month to be able to answer as many questions as you may have, outside of obviously the very detailed money matters of it and what would go into the case that way. So, that is a very important component and piece, and I hope that will satisfy as many of the questions that some may have. At this point, I am still in favor of this resolution going forward tonight, and I hope that you will consider that, and I respectfully understand your desire for more information, But this, I've sent out emails of different articles. I've been chatting with people right along. This has not been a dead issue since it did not pass before. I obviously know that you're no's, so if I did not reach out to you enough to get enough understanding to you, it's because I already knew of what your philosophical base was, and I don't foresee that it's going to change, is it? So that is where I am at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Peck. Just be careful not to be addressing particular members of the board, please. Just address the resolution, address the up here. Thank you. Mr. Drake, okay.
I just want to say one thing. It's not all about money. We made a mistake in introducing this drug. And through this lawsuit, I hope that we can learn what are our mistakes and future generations won't go through this. Thank you.
Mr. Giro?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I think Mr. Peck kind of hit the nail on the head that we're going to have somebody give us more information about it in just a few weeks. So I don't see the rush to move something forward without the information that might sway people. With that being said, though, I think he's also probably right that philosophically I am opposed to a lot of this, and it would be hard to sway me. But information is power. So I don't see why we need to go forward. Why would we have an informational session after the fact of the vote?
Thank you, Mr. Giro. Mr. McBride?
Thank you. I guess as an engineer thinking, this was a product that was brought to the medical market that had a need. It was an FDA-approved product. It was found to be required for certain applications. And I'm just nervous that a lawsuit could potentially scare these companies to not want to do these innovations in the future, that they're just going to be gun-shy, that if something goes like this and the potential problems exist, that they don't want to run the risk of doing it again. So for that case, I'm going to vote no on this resolution.
I hear you on that, Mr. McBride, and as you previously read from me, that our participation or lack thereof in this suit is not going to change the overall lawsuit moving forward. So we're not going to impact it one way or the other. Okay, the policy decision, in my opinion, is measuring the impact that this has had on our community, measuring the impact it's had in terms of department by department and what taxpayers have had to pay in order to address the situation in our community. And if there's a measurable impact, then a reasonable case moving forward for us to recoup some of the taxpayer money is in order. So I've heard different people say, their fear of this lawsuit. We don't change it. Our participation does not change it. The policy matter here is how much taxpayers have spent in this community to address it. Further discussion? Mr. Maxon. Mr. Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is an explosive topic for drug abuse. I think a lot of us have seen it up close and personal before, whether they're legal or illegal drugs. So I know it's a very emotional topic, but to discuss weighting doesn't necessarily mean that someone does not have empathy for the persons or their family. So I'd like to just get that off the table right now, because if anybody's seen it, it's a terrible thing. So basically the mechanics of this is what I disagree with. I am probably somebody that could be a yes, philosophically, but I don't feel that I have the information needed to move forward with a lawsuit, which I think is a pretty serious step. I think I would like to see it at the 30,000 foot level. I don't think this is even at the 30,000 foot level, to be honest with you. I'd like to know what our parameters are, what you know, if there's already a possible attorney that's been, or firm that has been penciled in, why can't we talk to them first? And no one has been able to tell me that time is of the essence here. No one said that this has got to be done by tomorrow. So I think with prudence, I myself would have liked to have seen Legislator Maxon's idea move forward, maybe as some type of compromise. Maybe it didn't have to be that long, maybe it doesn't have that many people, but I feel a conversation should have at least taken place. To my knowledge, it did not. So I'm for waiting, but I'd like to see more information on this. I'd like to hear from more about the legalities. We've heard about the passion of what's happened. No one's going to deny that or take that away. But we're talking about litigation now. And as the chairman said, whatever we do moving forward may or may not, or will not affect what the drug companies are going to do. I think that was the thing. So what's the rush? You know, now we're looking at getting information next month that I feel we should have had parameters and information beforehand. Not blaming anybody. I just think it's gone down the road. And no one's questioning it until it just came up for a vote. So I'm a no right now, respectfully, and I would appreciate more dialogue on it as far as what the mechanics of a lawsuit is going to mean to Jefferson County. It's not going to bring people back. It's not going to cure anybody. So what are we talking about here as far as money, where it's going to go, what are the parameters? I think it's a fair question to ask. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Further discussion. Mr. Maxon.
Thank you. One of the questions that I would pose to the board in sort of a thought experiment, as these lawsuits are going forward, they're being brought by cities, they're being brought by villages and counties. If the county of Jefferson decides to pursue litigation and the town of Adams, for whatever reason, decided that they wanted to retain a lawyer and sue the drug companies, would a settlement go to both entities, since they're county taxpayers, or would the judge decide that the county would be the best conduit to administer any settlement to handle for the towns and villages, or would they decide that the state would be the best conduit? And that might be a little more ethereal question, but I don't know that even that we need to participate has been proved. I think that going forward, as I said, my intention right now, whenever we finish discussion, is to move to postpone consideration, to allow for the investigation and the recommendation of a special committee. I then intend to introduce a resolution to create a special committee that would have 3 months to investigate. The interesting thing about that is that we'd need to waive the standing rules to do that, and it would require 10 votes. The resolution only requires 8 to pass, but this resolution also requires 8 to pass, and if it fails, it can't be reintroduced to this board for another 3 months, which is the exact amount of time that I've asked for a recommendation. I've been looking for compromise here. There are members of this board that feel they don't have enough information. They feel that they're being pressured to pass the bill so we can see what's in it. And then if we don't like it, we can try and put the dragons back in Pandora's box. And I think that is bad governing. I think it's bad practice. I think that we should be deliberative. We should take, if it's not 3 months, then let's amend this, what I'm talking about. Let's take a period of time to not just invite the law firms in, but to invite the law firms, to invite people who are on both sides of the issue in a very nonpartisan, non-judgmental way to make the case for and against, not to spoon-feed the lawyers who have been whispering into our ears, we are going to give you money. I think it's a bad way to do business, and it's a worse way to do government.
Thank you, Mr. Maxon. Further discussion? None? All in favor? Mr. Maxon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we postpone consideration of the resolution to allow for further investigation and the recommendation of a special committee.
Do you have a second? Mr. Gero. Okay, so discussion on the motion that's on the floor. So that ceases discussion on the resolution, and the discussion now will be just towards Mr. Maxon, Mr. Gero's motion in second. Is there discussion on that? Mr. Peck?
Does it sound clear what is the motion?
Delay consideration.
The motion is to delay consideration using Rule 50, using one of our, in our standing rules, there are motions that are in order of precedence. This is a motion to delay, postpone consideration.
To win.
Until we conduct an investigation and receive the recommendation of a special committee.
So that's indefinite?
There's a 3-month time period right here.
For 3 months?
Yes.
This is a multi-step process. The first order of business is he's asking for a delay of consideration. Depending upon how this motion all comes out, he plans on introducing, first of all, asking to waive the rules, and then introducing another resolution that defines that. The 3 steps. This step, waive the rules, and then the resolution. Yep. Delay consideration, which is, yep. And we have a motion and a second, so I'll ask for discussion regarding that motion. Mr. Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess, just to add on that, as far as that particular motion, that's, you may postpone the motion until a specific event has occurred, such as after an officer makes a relevant report. So you're tying us directly in, I presume, to having some sort of an investigation then? Is that the intention of this resolution, of the postponement? Because you need to have a time frame by utilizing this particular motion. It cannot just be a motion unto itself, so to speak. Otherwise, you might as well just lay it on the table and then bring it up at the next meeting.
Well, that's what I was trying to elucidate, that his motion to postpone was for a certain specific time period or to a specific date. And he's saying it's for a 3-month period, so.
May I? The motion is to postpone consideration for the investigation, to allow for the investigation and the recommendation of a special committee report. That special committee report is defined in the resolution that I emailed around this weekend as under Rule 57 of the standing rules, creating a special committee that would report at our June full board meeting, which is 3 months from now.
Of course, that's the second part of what you're
correct.
Going to be,
that's the third part.
Submitting that resolution, and then the special committee will be dependent on that
correct.
resolution. So the first part is just the postponement of
delay consideration
of motion.
Yep.
Correct.
Which is a few steps below tabling it because it allows for discussion. So, discussion on the motion. Here, Mr. Beck.
Just to reiterate, I don't, as far as I've said before already, we initially had brought this up last summer. There was initial discussions within the chairs even before that. There's been time within the interim between when it did not successfully pass a majority, even till this point now, and even in committee. I think there's been, I respectfully understand the desire for more information, but I do not think that it would require 3 months examination to get any more information. And that is my opinion.
Further discussion on the motion? Yes, you may.
My inclination at this point is, not to delay it at all, because I have a sense that there is a majority that is willing to pass this as it is. And I think we're bending the rules here a little bit, since the question is directed at me, Mr. Chair.
That's correct. If you saw me winching my chair, that's correct.
Yes, I did.
I thought you did.
Grit your teeth. So.
Pardon?
But
That's okay. That's okay. Next month. Yep. Yep. Good question. Further discussion. Mr. Reed.
I'll just reiterate, I would have liked to seen some type of compromise. I still haven't been told of any drop due date that this has to transpire by. So I would have liked to have seen some meeting of the minds, or somewhere getting to the middle to get enough information to make everybody comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you. And further discussion, Mr. Maxim, then Mr. Peck. Mr. Peck.
Just a technical question for Mr. Paulson, if I may. If Purdue Pharma does go forward with their suggested rumors of filing for bankruptcy, does that slam the door shut?
Is this on the motion, or are you back to the resolution?
Huh? This does with time frame.
Okay.
It does with time
Thank
frame.
you.
So that
Okay.
is the nature of my question to the attorney.
Yep.
Does bankruptcy by a particular corporation have an influence?
I believe that if we had not filed a complaint against them before they filed bankruptcy, we would probably not be able to file a claim against them. What effect their having filed bankruptcy after we had filed a complaint against them, I cannot speak to that question. That would be for the trial attorney to be able to address. But certainly if we haven't at least commenced something, that would be a lost opportunity.
Further discussion? None? I'm going to ask Mr. Roll call. Roll call. I'm going to call the question. Roll call vote, please. This is on the motion to delay consideration.
Legislator Doldo? Cantwell? McBride? Drake? Reed? Jarrow? Fitzpatrick? Peck? Nebewanik? Maxon? Johnson? Gray?
No.
The noes, the vote is 8-4.
Defeat.
8-4.
The motion is defeated. Motion is defeated. Okay. Back to Resolution 68. One more call for discussion. Done? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like a roll call vote, please.
Certainly may get it.
Now, this is on the resolution itself.
This is on the resolution. Roll call vote, please.
Legislator Jarrow?
No.
Johnson? Yes. Dodo? Yes. Fitzpatrick? Peck? Yes. Reed? No. McBride? No. Drake? Yes. Cantwell? Yes. Maxon?
No.
Nebewanik?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. That concludes our motions, local laws, resolutions, and motions. Is there any unfinished business or new business to come before the board this evening? Mr. Dolan.
Thank you. I was going to comment, but during the resolution, but I'm going to comment now. Way back when this happened, this is something that's not new to our community. This happened years ago. Way back at that time, I had had back surgery. I was on opioids myself. It was something I had no knowledge of. I don't believe my doctor had enough knowledge on it, the pharmacist, so I can't blame either one of those. I think it's the pharmacist or the actual manufacturer that failed to provide the proper information necessary for patients to make a choice. I did not know it was addictive until well into my surgery, beyond my surgery. Someone made a comment to me one day, "You be careful with those are addicting." Scared the hell out of me. I did stop right away. I was one of the lucky ones that stopped. There's a lot of people out there that may not have been as strong or may not have been informed as to the issues tied with opioids. Since being on the board, I've been involved with our community like a bunch of other people have. I've been to the pivot meetings, learned a lot, helped out people that were on opioids, tried to help them come around. It is a tough problem. It's an old problem. It's not easy to get off the drug, and it has cost our communities and families have lost thousands of dollars and have gone broke. We have people that everybody knows. We have people within our own families. We have cousins, uncles, whatever, that have struggled with this, and I've seen it firsthand, and it's tough. I don't blame anybody else but the manufacturer for not giving out information. It has been in the news that they have not revealed all the information from this. One recent piece that I have read is one of the manufacturers have hired a former stripper to go and work for their company to push their drugs with the hopes of bringing in a substantial profit. That's just wrong. So there is something to say about what the drug companies do and how they market their product. All they care about is the almighty dollar. They do make good drugs, but they have to be responsible and inform the public of the side effects of the drugs so that people have that choice to make before it's too late. Again, I was one of the fortunate ones that stopped, but I know a lot of people that were not able to. That is why I voted in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dovo. Any other new business, unfinished business, anything come before the board? None? I just appreciate all the dialogue tonight, and well done on everybody's part. I would just like to recognize Mr. Giro, who just had a fleeting birthday a couple days ago. Happy birthday, and one that's coming up, Mr. Drake. Happy birthday to you. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Yes, Mr. Peck.
Yes, just also add, I believe, in addition to the presentation, which we will have from a attorney of some sort at the next Health and Human Services, I believe we also have presentations at the next Finance and Rules also again.
Yes. Oh, you mean on the public benefits agencies? Yes, we will have those on a monthly basis.
Who is it going to be for this upcoming month?
I'm going to send out just a list for everybody to see for each Finance and Rules through July. But so off the top of my head, I believe it's the IDA, and I'm not sure. I've drawn a blank on the other. Yes, IDA is one.
I know IDA is one. So, motion to adjourn? Did you have something else, Mr. Peck? You have something? I can see it on your mind. I can see the gears working. Mr. Cantwell, second. Mr. Nabuana. All in favor?
See on the flip side,
All right.
That was very cool.
I'll see you down there, Jim. Okay, I'll see you down there, Pat.